Misplaced affection, puppy dog. Although I'm sure that's what you'll call it. I love
Good evening, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Smoke Talk, episode 2. Hopefully everybody can hear me. We should be all good to go. So we'll get started. Welcome to a captivating edition of Smoke Talk. I am so excited about today's show. I'm your host, Sage, if you didn't know, and we are broadcasting live this sparkling evening. It's beautiful outside. It's that perfect, like, cloudy, but it's kind of just magical outside. You know what I mean. So at this very hour, we are going to bring you 2 incredible guests. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. First, we are going to be joined by Noelle Peterson, a Virginia-based MB talent whose artistry, to me at least, spans both the stage and the lens in equal measure. We are going to talk about how they have captured life's raw moments with grace and authenticity. They're on the cusp of a very bold journey pursuing higher education across the seas, and we are going to explore every step of that voyage tonight. And then if you stay with us past then, as the night unfolds at 8 p.m. Eastern sharp, the spotlight is going to turn to the Arthur Wells. Arthur Wells is a maestro of the imagination, the mind behind these enthralling TTRPGs that have consumed my days recently, to be perfectly honest. I've been reading just so much about these games. They celebrate like these mystical ties of magic, of community. They are incredibly unique. I am so excited. Now we're gonna talk about the secrets behind the crafting worlds that captivate and connect. So settle in, turn up the volume, and let's start the conversation. Welcome to Smoke Talk. Just realized I was muted. It's cool. I'm getting used to this. We'll get used to it together. So before we start, before we get everything all together, I want to show a couple of brief commercials. Just a channel trailer for the Indigenous streamer Shanna Lee, and of course we can't go anywhere without repping Timbo the Wizard. We are going to show a trailer for their season 2 of their TTRPG that they're playing out in on Twitch as well, Torn. So let's go ahead and watch those, and when we come back, we will have Noelle and we'll begin.
That's the nature of the bubble. There's always a bigger fish.
Bad things happen around me.
Neither of you are dying.
The last thing I say to Lux is, this is, I'm here to do something good.
Somebody recognized me.
Who the fuck are you?
My name's Lance a Little, and you're dead.
One job. One.
Have you ever wanted to see the corpse of a dead god?
Don't sell your soul to that cat.
Do you think they're trying to kill me?
Obviously, I'm fine.
Come and catch the magic.
This is what I'm doing. I feel really hot right now. Smudging. Smudging. Timer started. Oh no! Oh no! No! Who made me stand up? Yeet. Okay. No! Oh, I should leave a note like that. That's terrifying. Okay. There's the breath. Sorry. No. Choke me! Choke me, mommy! Yes! Spin it in it. Dinner, can't touch it. I believe I can run. I believe my Crocs are in sports mode. Yes. I can make it to her. Ah! She took you right in front of me.
Welcome back, welcome back. Here we have the amazing Noelle. Noelle, why don't you give us a nice intro?
Hi everybody. My name is Noelle. Earlier, I'm a non-binary actor and photographer based in Virginia. And I'm soon to be moving to Scotland to get my MFA.
Welcome in, welcome in. Okay, so we have a bunch of questions. Super, super awesome stuff coming up. I've been like just gaga over everything lately. But let's start from the beginning. Let's talk photography first, I think. Okay. So first question is the obvious. What first drew you to photography? Like, how do you approach this?
Let's see. I first picked up a camera when I was like 15 years old. So been at it for a while. It originally really started with like cosplay photography. And then I put down my camera for quite a while, and I was taking classes and watching shows at the Push Comedy Theater, which is based around here. And I decided one day that I was going to start taking pictures of the shows. And that's really what got me a lot more into, I guess, like performance photography. And then that developed into taking headshots for actors and really wanting to capture like candid moments of people. So like when I do family photography, that tends to be very candid. So I'd say it really, really sprouted from taking pictures at Push, because improv is like, you don't know what's going to happen. So it's performance, but it's very, very candid.
Tell us a little bit about Push. Like what started you taking pictures there?
So I was brought to Push Comedy originally to audition for a horror anthology that happens every Halloween. It was the very first year they were going to do it. And I'd worked with one of the 6 directors that was going to be part of it, and he wanted me to audition. And I kind of just stuck around the theater after that, just having a lot of fun being around funny people. Improv is also a very good skill to have as an actor. And even though it took me quite a few months to actually take a class, I eventually did. But I decided, like, I think this is something that should be documented. I think it'd be cool for people to have photos of themselves on stage. And I was just inspired to pick up my camera again, just seeing what people were doing on stage. And now there are like maybe like 4 or 5 people, like amazing people that take pictures there now too. So it's cool to see how it's expanded as well.
Oh, that is so exciting. I definitely will have to make my way down to Push at some point.
Oh yeah.
Like it sounds really cool.
It is.
So let's go ahead and have a look-see, I think, at some of your art. I've been just very, very excited to kind of go through and see like what we've got going on. So here, let's go ahead and move on over here. Okay, so also everyone give a follow, be lovely. Let's talk about the first one that comes up here. Go.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about this one. Tell us the story behind this piece.
Okay, so I was about to go on or start my auditions for various schools I was looking at for my master's program, and my friend Derek wanted to help distract me and just have a nice day out. So we went to an abandoned area in Virginia called Union Level. And it's very cool. The buildings for the most part are still standing, but there is a lot of stuff still in these buildings. So you can kind of see as well, like you have a dresser and everything in the background. There was a bed in there. And I saw this pair of shoes. I love taking kind of very cinematic photos that feel like there's a story behind them. And I saw those boots and I was like, and they were right by the entrance. Like we couldn't go into the house or the floor would have collapsed, honestly. Like I would have been very afraid of that. But those boots were just perfectly next to each other, right by the entrance. And I thought there was something there. There was something kind of ominous and very left behind about seeing a pair of shoes just perfectly placed next to each other right by the entrance.
Yeah, I see it. It gives that really like lived in, like left in a hurry kind of
exactly.
Look.
Yeah.
Very Fallout, actually, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate that it's in black and white. I really appreciate that it's just like it's very well shot. It's very well framed.
Thank you.
I like the dress.
I took it in color as well, but this is what I also translated into black and white because something about the lights and shadows of it stood out a lot more to me in black and white than having the full color version of it.
Yeah, to me it gives like a lot of historical almost context to it.
A timelessness.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it feels almost Chernobyl-ish.
Yeah.
Chernobyl-esque. So let's talk about this one.
Oh,
Tell me a
okay.
little bit about this.
Yes, so this was at the convention C2E2, and I got to go to this last year. And this, I picked this picture in particular because I mean I love taking pictures of people just kind of doing stuff. But this actor is Vico Ortiz, who is a non-binary actor, who is in the show Our Flag Means Death. A group of us put together a drag slash burlesque Our Flag Means Death themed show. Vico was a guest at the convention, and
Thanks for the
they
follow, Playboy.
they
Continue, I'm sorry.
came to oh you're good. They came to the performance and came up and spoke on stage for a while, and they do drag work themselves and do some burlesque themselves. So it was really, really cool to have them there. Plus they were honestly like a really huge inspiration for me to be able to come out. Something that held me back a lot in being an actor was like worried about how I would be perceived and wanting to be marketable as a person. But I always knew like something was off in being called a woman. So seeing Vico play a non-binary part in the show and just be so proudly out and who they are was very inspirational, something that really, really was able to help me come out myself. So I picked this photo of Vico.
I am genuinely so impressed by how good it looks, and I love that it ties back to that journey that you took. I mean, I've been following your work for like a while, bit of a fanboy, and and I really like I've adored seeing how much you've just come into yourself and become just like so much more full and wonderful. And I mean, as a non-binary individual, I do want to know kind of how that identity that you've found for yourself, that you've discovered and been able to bring to the surface. I wonder if it shapes the way that you approach photography, and for that matter, acting too.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to photography, it does in a sense that my self-portrait sessions are very, very character driven and very character based. So they've always kind of my cosplay even has always been very like male characters and females and everything in between, and I've never felt extremely tied to one or the other. And that's definitely carried over, especially since having top surgery. It's something I don't want to hide. And if there has been the opportunity to show it in a character, I definitely have been very free about showing that aspect of my body now, because I mean, it's something I'm very proud of. Like I did something to make me feel more like me. And I definitely don't want to hide that. And I want other people to see it, especially if they might be figuring themselves out, or if they might not realize like non-binary people can get top surgery too. You don't, necessarily have to be a trans man to get that. So I just, it's something I just want people to see that non-binary people, trans people come in all different shapes, and whatever makes your body most comfortable is something you should pursue.
I adore that, actually. I like that a lot. Speaking of just how slay, honestly, let's look at some of this. Let's look at some of this self-photography featuring just that. Have a look at this incredible thing I'm obsessed over. This and the Nap of Crowley have been like in my head rent free. Let's talk about it. Tell me everything. Tell me everything from the beginning to the moment you needed to just get it out.
So I love Good Omens. I particularly love cosplaying Crowley. I just kind of attached to him. I mean, partially both have red hair. That's definitely part of it. But Crowley, out of Aziraphale and Crowley, tends to have a little bit more fluidity in the gender of how he dresses. If you look at their scenes through history, Crowley's costuming tends to embrace both like more male and female aspects of fashion history, which is really, really cool. So this photo, I had made the wings. Well, I'd used the base of like retractable wings, but I hand glued all of the feathers onto it. It took so long. But I had made these wings for my Crowley cosplay, and I really, really wanted to portray the fall of Crowley, which as fans, we probably make it potentially way more angsty than Neil Gaiman is potentially going to show us. But I love using religious art as inspiration. I love the lights and shadows of the art in it, and I like trying to kind of replicate that in my photography. So I wanted to show Crowley having just fallen. So black wings, but still like the light, more angelic garb. And I was like actively crying while taking these pictures. It was a lot. I feel like I was getting a lot out when I was taking these pictures. But yeah, I just wanted just kind of like Renaissance religious art feel to his fall.
I mean, honestly, first of all, your expression in this is incredible. I mean, I can see so much like pain and abandonment and like a little bit of begging in there, like a pleading with something that's abandoned you. Also, I was today years old when I learned it's pronounced Crowley, and I've been pronouncing Crowley for so long.
In Supernatural, they say Crowley, but Good Omens, they say Crowley.
I feel like Crowley works better because it's just Crowley.
Crowley. Yeah.
And it works with the black wings too. It's like crow's wings.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, I mean, talk to me. Actually, okay, I'm a little curious, just on a technical level. Talk to me about the lighting setup for this one.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I was given these two just kind of not honestly nothing super fancy, but a friend had them in her garage and she wanted a couple of backdrops and this lighting to go to someone who would use them, and I was like, I will absolutely take them. So I needed the more spotlight feel, so I had the light above me, but that still wasn't like spotlight enough, so I took like I have like these zip sandbags to weigh down my stands that didn't have anything in them, so I duct taped it around the edge of the light covering to kind of bring it a little bit more focused. And I have a really big backdrop, so I did have enough of that space above me, but then I just kind of went and darkened it a little bit more above me to bring it even more to a spotlight.
Yeah,
but
I see that.
Yeah.
I love the fade. It's like
I really just MacGyvered a spotlight.
I don't know, it just gives me this like a dying light kind of feeling. It's like you can actively see the eye of God like moving from him. It's like I'm obsessed. I am so obsessed.
Thank you.
Now, let's talk a little more about some of the more like dramatic pictures that you've taken.
Sure.
As like, hello? Hi. Tell me, yeah, everything. Just go ahead and go on.
So I love cryptids. Absolutely love cryptids. So this is my portrayal of what a more humanoid, even more humanoid Mothman might look like. So I have like the mask on because one of the things is like Mothman doesn't speak. It's not a speaking cryptid. And he's said to be kind of a harbinger of doom. He was said to be spotted before a great bridge collapse in Chicago. So you see Mothman before something horrible might happen, but he can't really tell you what's going to happen. So I had this idea that he actually doesn't have a mouth at all. And in my head, I was like, I just kind of want to add this layer of he might really want to say what's going to happen. He might want to warn people and physically does not have the ability to do that. So have the mask to hide the fact that he like doesn't have a mouth.
This is so cool.
And I just wanted kind of like moth-like markings, like the coat with the big collar, and then a little moth antenna.
Whoa is right. We have a comment there from Wowie. Just whoa. I can see the intensity in the eyes. It's almost like it's like those eyes that have just seen a lot and they know what violence is coming, but at the same exact time it's like trying to tell you this message urgency. Like I could see it. I could feel it. And like I had no idea about the story behind it, and I was just like, "Oh, wow, that's some cool red right there." And now I'm looking at it and I'm just like mind blown by your creativity.
Thank you.
Have you wanted to like write something about this?
I haven't considered it. I am really bad at writing in like more long form things. Anything I write is very very short story length. But it would be cool maybe to write like a short narrative to kind of match this.
Yeah, kind of like a cold open kind of scene.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the smoke was rising and nobody knew why, and just like 2-3 feet ahead of the smoke comes rushing this motherfucker.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
Yep.
I love it. I absolutely adore everything about this picture and about just everything that we've seen. But like when it comes to photography in general, like this looks like it took a lot of skill, quite frankly. And I mean, it seems like you've had to put a lot of hours, a lot of practice into this sort of thing. I mean, how long have you been doing photography? Like how long has it taken to build this level?
I mean, I've been at it for about 15 years now. Probably a lot more regularly for the past 7 or so. And just kind of continuously played around with lighting, and it's really just seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and you learn something different every time you shoot. Or if there's like a certain thing I want to Photoshop and I have no idea how to do it, I'm going to figure out how to do it just to make this picture happen. So it's really just trial and error and figuring it out. And yeah, that's why I like shooting myself, because I feel like there is not the pressure of like, I have to impress somebody else. It's like I can take the time to figure out what's working and what's not working with myself. And then it's just me yelling at my lights. So, you know.
I definitely, I see that. We've talked a lot about your photography. We've talked a lot about what inspires you, what the stories behind your stuff, like everything is. And I guess what I'm wondering now is more along the lines of, I mean, what, like in contrast to your acting, or in contrast to photography, like what excites you about being in front of the camera, like as an actor?
I just love telling stories. That's really what I love to do. I absolutely love telling stories, or being in stories, honestly. So my performing started when I was about 6 years old, and I started doing ballet. So that's when my performance started. But even then, I was very, very drawn to doing story ballets. And I don't think I really had the idea for like what acting was at that age. But I knew I wanted to be in stories. I was like, my first ballet was like The Nutcracker. And I didn't care about any of the dance roles. I mean, I was a mouse my first year, just a little sweet little mouse. But I always wanted to be in the party scene in the Nutcracker because that's where the acting was. That's where you were like really inside of the story. And I was always very drawn to that. And eventually it was able to develop into this realization of like acting. And that's what I want to do. And I mean, we talked about it in photography, but it carries over there too, where there's a story behind it all the time. So that's really what draws me to it.
It's the narrative, it's the telling of the stories.
Yes, yeah. And being able to introduce people to ideas, to stories that they may not have considered, to ideas they may not have considered, to what other people are going through. It's a magical connection. And I love film for the fact it incorporates the photography aspect. But in theater, you have this constant exchange of live energy that is unlike anything else.
I've seen. I think I saw you in. I think I saw you in two plays, two stage plays, and then I've seen your acting on the screen personally. I've seen some good stuff, but for our audience, let's go ahead and lean over and just watch Noelle's reel and just see how their acting, it just blows your mind. Let's take a minute and watch this.
She let me borrow it.
Lying is bad manners.
I don't like people popping up out of nowhere, so if you excuse me.
I must explain why I'm an admirer of the cartoonist Claire Dims. She does amazing work. Like this. Look, this is fine work. Very fine work. And this looks much like the Prophet, peace be upon him.
If you say so, I'm no critic.
And it is funny. Look, the markings on the scimitar in his hand. Very authentic.
I'm glad you like it. When I see Claire, I'll let her know you're a fan.
You must also let her know. It is a blasphemy. It is an abomination to the faithful.
Hurry now, step forward! Hold! Sorry, no clowns. Women and children only. My mistake, ma'am, sorry. Why didn't you say so? Yeah, very well. Hurry now, come aboard and mind your step.
Wanda, I need your help.
I have a boyfriend.
What do you know about the multiverse?
Viz had his theories.
Doesn't seem fair.
I want you to come with me. Please say yes.
Hey, you guys okay over there?
Yeah, yeah. No.
All right, guys, we're back up. Let's get set up and knock this out.
All right, let's get ready. All right. Cool. All right, we're all set. Let's go.
And action.
Absolutely. I would do anything for this girl. I love her.
We couldn't be any happier.
And cut. That's good. That's a wrap. Print it.
You guys think you hold all the cards? You think you have the last word on reality? You do! No, you think anything you do to me is okay and anything I do is fucked because I'm not using the right words! I'm throwing pencils and saying fuck you and shit. That's my problem. You guys think you own the world. I mean, who made these rules, Andrew?
Incredible. I swear. We're going to talk about this bit by bit, one by one. Sorry, we have to. Okay, so let's start from like the end and then move back to the beginning. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so that monologue that you did, how do you have that lung power? I would have run out of breath like a quarter through there.
I am a very small and very loud person.
It was so good.
Thank you.
It was so good. And Wawieli says that first scene sent chills, so we got to dip back to that
Thank
one.
you.
Tell us a little more context with that.
The first scene?
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of an anthology from a local production company called I believe it was Bad Things, Good People. And it's a series of short films about people who aren't necessarily like bad people, but they have been pushed to their extreme. So this one that I was in was inspired by the Charlie Hebdo incident that happened in France, where one of their cartoonists drew Muhammad, and the building was then attacked because of that. So I played a cartoonist who drew Muhammad, and she was followed by this man. She believes that he is going to attack her. It ends up that he was just going to show her his own cartoon that he drew. But she had received a lot of death threats. So she was, again, someone who under a lot of pressure, very scared about what's going to happen to her. So a very topical film, and not necessarily playing someone who had the best reaction to, what she was faced with.
Well, frankly,
but
he was a little creepy.
He was a little in a parking garage at night. So
yeah,
she was definitely pushed to her limit, especially after having received death threats from the comic that she drew. And a very interesting role to play, to kind of, I try never to judge the characters I'm playing, because I feel that it doesn't allow me to fully delve into them if I am judging what they're doing. So there has to be I see what's happening in order to get through it.
right. It's the, okay, maybe the first impression wasn't great, but like, hear him out kind of situation.
Yep.
Which, quite frankly, I would struggle to hear that out. The approach was terrifying. It's just very, very terrifying.
Yes. Yes.
Now, that said, with the serious things, let's go back forward, and let's talk about that part with the couple where it's come with me, no, like, oh, and then just, let me just say, I could just look into your eyes and see just the absolute trying to keep it together, trying to like not break down and just finish this job.
Yeah.
A few more seconds, and just the absolute fight to do it. Like, tell me a little more about that.
So that scene is interesting because we had a few lines. We had a story to follow, the direction they wanted us to go in, the moments they really wanted us to hit. But overall, we improvised that film, that conversation that happens. They really wanted a very natural push and pull to happen. And it very easily gets very emotional very quickly when it's just these words are just naturally falling out of your mouth in accordance to the story. Yeah.
I can see that. I mean,
it got very real.
Yeah, who came up with the, like, was it you just kind of coming up with the idea like in the middle of it to just be like, come with me? Like, where was your character going?
So we knew we were playing a couple where she wanted to move away. She wanted him to come with her. And we knew that he wasn't going to do it, but yet they were filming a commercial for the happiest, most well-matched couple. So really just, I mean, honestly, just that human, just, you love someone, you want them to come with you, just begging them to stay, and they have made up their mind and it's not going to happen, and then having to switch right into, boom, we're so happy.
We've never been happier.
We've never been happier.
Shatters into a million pieces. I feel like that's actually really relatable though. Like I feel like a lot of people have had to go through a situation that has just completely shattered them like from the
Yes.
inside out, and then just immediately afterwards had to like go grocery shopping or go to work.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
The put on a brave face and keep
Because life
going.
doesn't stop.
Exactly. Yeah.
Life doesn't stop. And I think that sense of relatability is what really made that scene just like that stood out almost the most to me, I would say. But I mean, like that's a lot of seriousness. It's a lot of heavy. Let's talk about the lighter bit. Which one do you want to address first? Because I got questions.
Which one do you really have questions about? Because
mime. All right, tell me about the mime. Why?
Okay.
Was it tight? It looked like Titanic-esque.
Yes.
Tell me.
Okay. I loved this show so much. A very talented actor, playwright, director in the area named Brant Powell also loves the story of the Titanic and wrote a play that you essentially see 3 lifeboats of the Titanic. And you have these intermittent scenes of the musicians that have stayed on board. And the lifeboats are quite humorous. The musicians, not so much. So he's very good at balancing very real emotion with a lot of really great humor. The end of that lifeboat, shockingly, just gets kind of very serious, honestly. But he mixed in some real people that were on the Titanic with some fictional characters. And so I played the mime Tabitha Buttons, who, even when facing death, was going to stick to her mime guns. There was literally a lot of finger guns that happened. We had a standoff where I pulled out finger guns.
Really?
Yes. And it was so much fun. So much fun. She had one line at the end of the lifeboat where due to a series of ridiculous circumstances, their lifeboat does not make it and starts filling up with water. And you hear the musicians playing Near My God to Thee on board. And she pulls off her beret and just looks out and says, "God damn it."
That's a hell of a last word type of situation. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. One of my favorite roles I've ever played. I adore Tabitha Buttons.
That is
love her.
So
she
good.
So
feisty.
So she pulled out many a middle finger for people. It was great. She fished one up, pulled one out of a box.
As one does. If I could pull a middle finger out of a box, I would. Unfortunately, I just have to sort of produce it. That's fantastic.
So much fun.
Moving forward from that play, which I wish was going to be put on again. It's just not even moving on. Hold up. This is the thing that breaks my freaking heart about plays, is that once it's done, and it's gone.
It is. It's a moment
every
in
performance
time.
is a little bit different, and every experience is a little bit different, but once it's over. Moment gone, never to be had again. And I have severe FOMO, so
there's something very sad and very beautiful about the fact that you get that one show one time.
It's got to be incredible to sit there as an actor, just to be able to sit there and portray this character and just be this person. It's so like, it's got to be like, I would consider it kind of an honor, I think. Is that the right reaction?
Anytime I get to be on stage is an honor. Anytime a director takes a chance on me and decides, like, this is the person I want to fill this part, it is an absolute honor. Like, you got to fight your way to these stages, and I will never in my life hold back on stage. I I am incapable of doing it. It is heart slamming against the wall every single time.
That'll be cathartic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I mean, I know that you are just absolutely prolific in the 757. I know that like you especially have just graced so many stages, but it is also my understanding that you will not be gracing these stages for much longer.
I won't be.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
So I brought up my auditions for master's programs, and I was very, very luckily accepted into the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, where I will be getting my MFA, Masters of Fine Arts in Acting, Classical and Contemporary Text.
So many cooler stages to be on in your future. I wish
still
could
can't
see
believe
it.
it's real. I'm just
that's incredible. I mean, how do you I mean, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh my god,
Thank you.
that is such a huge thing. But when you move over there, like how do you anticipate it's going to affect you creatively? Like both in acting and in photography, because I if I know anything about you, that's not going away anytime soon.
Oh, I will be taking so many pictures around Glasgow, like so many pictures. Well, I definitely wanted to further my acting, and this is definitely a very prestigious program to get into, and a lot of times like the British schooling of acting, I mean, they respect their theater on a whole different level. I mean, they have nationally funded theater, which is absolutely incredible to see. And I really wanted to take it to the next level and be pushed by a very rigorous program. But the other really great thing about this program that I got into is I feel like they embrace like the full artist and what people want to say as an actor, what they want to say on stage. We also get to work with Masters of Directing students. So they'll be working with us on stuff, which is really, really cool. There's a lot of original works, I think, that come out of this. There is a film festival that the master students participate in every year and create a new film for. So, and then, I mean, the last 4 months, which is the MFA portion, I will be creating my own piece that will then be performed in a showcase, which I'm very nervous about already. And it's like,
I mean,
well over a year away until I have to do that. But oh my God.
That sounds incredible. Like, I mean, you're going to be over there. You're going to be integrating every experience and every bit of knowledge into this big, just climactic thing. Like, this is me type of situation.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be incredible having come as far as you have to be able to embark on this final step of this chapter. And then but then when that chapter ends, like, what's next? Like, once you get your MFA, like, what are your kind of, I know it's going to change obviously over the course of the program, but right now stepping into it all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you know, like what are your career aspirations post-graduation?
I want to stay in the UK. Probably move to London to be a little bit more central to where a lot of the theaters are based. And I want to continue to pursue film and theater over there. It's something I've wanted for a really long time. I have dreamed about it since I was 18 and saw Doctor Who for the first time. That is my number one thing. I want to be on Doctor Who. I am putting this out there. Russell T. Davis, if you see this, I want to be on Doctor Who so bad. That's what I want to be a Doctor Who, but I want to perform with the Royal Shakespeare Company. Like, I want to do a show with the National Theatre. I want to be put in the middle of these absolutely incredible artists and amazing costume designers and sets, and just be a part of that and be a part of a place where going out to see theater is just something people do in the evening, and get to be a part of that.
That is so amazing. I mean, the bravery alone, because you're gonna have to give up so much. There's so much you're leaving behind for this.
Yeah.
How are you handling
Very scary. Well, I haven't gotten rid of nearly enough yet, so there's that. I have 4 months left. We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm really trying to get it down to like 2 suitcases and a couple of boxes is
for
is the
everything
goal.
that belongs
Well,
to you?
here's the thing. My student accommodations are quite small. So I don't really have room for a lot anyway. So for the most part, it's going to be the books I really like, a little bit of photography stuff, my computer, and clothes. And
I mean, that's fair. What more does a person need
Yeah.
than access to the internet and access to not catching a charge for indecent exposure?
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, you're set at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all heard it here first. I'm just saying, you heard it here absolutely first. Noelle Peterson, we are all putting it out there, is going to be on Doctor Who. It's gonna happen, and when it happens, you can say you heard it first on Smoke Talk and collectively lose your minds about it. You're so welcome.
Thank you.
So we are nearing kind of the end of our interview. We have about, 5-ish minutes left. And while we keep talking, I want to open it up to anybody who has any questions at this point. We'll see if anybody's got any questions. I think we've covered so much. This has been so rewarding because, I mean, let's think about it, right? We have covered photography. We've covered what got you into the just narrative in general and how that affected everything from creating stories with your photography to catching stories that are already there and leaving it up to people, to capturing the moment that like people have seen your stories and the stories themselves that other people have made and you have managed to embody. Like, that's a lot. As well as just taking everything that you have bundled up and everything that you have learned and throwing it out there into the world for the world to see. I'm just without words. It's just such a cool journey.
Thank you.
And we do have a question off of YouTube of all places. Hello.
Oh.
So it's we'll get to that one first. First, we'll go with Wawieli's. I might have missed this answer as I'm filling out scholarships for university. Good luck to you. Which character type or personality is your favorite to act as?
Oh my gosh. This is a hard question because I love all of it for different reasons, for finding different challenges in acting. Oh, you know what I haven't done a lot of though that I would really, really love to do? I want to be a villain.
A villain?
Nobody takes this little face and they're like, yeah, villain. I would love to play a villain. It would be so much fun.
I mean, I feel like you could pull one off really well, mostly because you have this ability to kind of have emotion in your eyes and then have the rest of your face not match that emotion. So I feel like you'd play a really good what's the way to term this? Like a villain who's acting off of pure emotion.
Ooh.
Like, you know that old TikTok trend, turn it off?
Yes.
That's the kind of villain I can see you playing.
Yes. I would love to do that.
Okay, so describe for me your perfect villain. While Ellie says villains are cool.
Villains are kind of cool, honestly. Oh my gosh. Okay. Perfect villain. I think like the villain that is very maybe like a very charismatic villain. Because like they put on the smile and have all the personality, but like they're awful, like Kilgrave and Jessica Jones. Like that kind of person with like all the charisma, nobody would believe they're terrible, and then they are like behind closed doors. Would be really fun because then you kind of get the two aspects of that personality. You get the charm, and then you get the Well, now I'm gonna fuck you up.
Skunk Monk says, or Oksana in Killing Eve.
I haven't watched enough Killing Eve. I didn't
Haven't
finish that.
either. I've seen
I didn't
it.
finish it. I'm sorry.
We do have a question on YouTube. The question is, do you foresee yourself when you go over to ye old Europe? They say, when you go over to ye old Europe, playing any roles that are specific to the cultures there that you can't get here?
I mean, there are definitely a lot of very British roles because they do a lot of like specifically British theater there, and that would be a lot of fun to do. There are certain ones I don't know if I would like. I don't know, like playing like a Welsh person because, they're still dealing with a lot of shit from like the English government and they dealt with a lot of like the Welsh language like being crushed and that kind of thing. So I was like, let's let the Welsh play the Welsh because there's a lot of history there. But British roles, yeah, no. I'll do anything. I'll do anything. Every role you play, you get to learn more, like, because you want to learn about the roles you're playing. So I'm down. I'm down.
Honestly, I feel it. And I can see that passion that you have. And I can see how much you want to put it out into the world. And that's kind of the whole theme of Smoke Talk, to be honest. It's what passions burn within you, what creative embers are creating this smoke inside of you, and what messages, what signals are you sending out in the world. And on that, I have our last question of the evening. If you were to take all of this passion, bundle it up inside of you, and put it into words, what would you tell the world? What do you want the world to know?
What do I want the world to know? Oh my God. Oh, this is gonna sound so cheesy, but like, honestly, follow your passions. Like, don't let anybody tell you can't. Don't let anybody crush that in you, like, ever. I spent a lot of time trying to, I think, not be an actor because I was afraid of the instability that can come with the career. But no matter what, the only thing I could see myself doing is this. So if you have that thing where the only thing you can see yourself doing is that thing that you really, really just love, like, do it. Do it. Don't give up. If you think you're not good at it, keep fucking going because everything is just trial and error and practice and working on it and just be willing to learn all the time.
I love that. I love that. And you know what? Just, I think to add my own little thing on that, if you were just listening to that and something came to mind, if you were listening to what Noelle just said and their words put in your head an activity, something, that's it. That's it. Sink your little hooks in. Hold on. It's going to be a crazy ride.
Do it.
Do it. Just
do it. Just do it.
Well, Noelle, this has been an absolute and utter treat. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much.
In about a year, we're going to have to check in and see how it went.
See if I'm losing my mind getting a degree.
We're going to pick what's left of your mind in about a year.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I will be so normal.
So normal. This has been absolutely wonderful. We're gonna go ahead and say our goodbyes, sad goodbyes, and go ahead and head on into an intermission. Thank you so much. Go ahead and say goodbye to our viewers.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining, and thank you for listening. If you're listening to this later, thanks for spending time with me. It means a lot.
You are so freaking precious, I swear. Okay, it was wonderful to see you. We'll see you next time. Bye. Okay, everybody, this has been just wonderful. I Just, gosh, I am just mind blown. This interview has been incredible. Now we're gonna head on into an intermission, and as we take that short intermission, let's sort of just to let it settle. Let's settle in Noelle Peterson's stories of transformation through acting and photography. It's just been light and shadow, and it's just been incredible. And when we come back, y'all know what time it is. We are going to continue with Arthur Wells, whose tabletop realms are just incredible. It's just such a rare essence of storytelling and communion. And, you know, honestly, whether it's through a camera's lens or through a roll of the dice, turn of the card, or just a simple DM's decision, I think that our stories are all kind of woven from the same thread of human experience. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but I honestly, that's what I feel. So we're going to go ahead and head into our intermission while we set up for this next wonderful, incredible interview. And we'll see you in about 5 minutes on Smoke Talk. Thank you for coming. Popping in here to say, if you are here for Werewolf's interview, please hold on for about 5 minutes. It may be a little bit longer. We're experiencing a tiny bit of technical difficulty, but we will see.
I was so confused before I met you. Oh, the color stripped from my review. Now I don't know what to do. Spent all my days missing who I was before. I was before. I pick myself up from the bathroom floor, but I'm not me anymore.
hello and welcome back. Welcome back to Smoke Talk, and my sincerest apologies for the extended intermission. I hope that it only heightened your anticipation, because now the moment that we have been eagerly awaiting is upon us. Get ready to delve into a world where imagination rules supreme with our next guest, Arthur Wells, who is a master, I would say, of TTRPGs and who crafts these incredible adventures that capture the heart while simultaneously challenging the mind. Let's go ahead and discover these realms of intrigue. Let's go ahead and figure out this creativity that Arthur brings to life. Let's give a very, very warm, like the warmest possible welcome that we possibly can to Arthur Wells. Hello there.
Hello. I'm so excited to be
Let's
here.
have a little bit of an introduction here. The long-awaited introduction. Tell me everything.
Hello. My name is Arthur Wells. I also go by Werewolf BF online. That's where, as in the question, wolf is in the animal, and then the letters B and F. I am really excited to be here. I was here for the first half watching Noelle's interview, and it was so much fun. But I'm also excited to talk about stuff. I know that we are mostly talking about like game design stuff today, and I'm really excited. I've been thinking about it all week, and it's been very exciting because I've gone over like some of my design notes for some of these things that we're talking about, and like it's fun because I haven't like visited those in like 2 or 3 years, and so like seeing some of that stuff is just exciting, and it like gets me jazzed about the projects I'm working about now. So yeah, excited to be here.
This is so exciting. I am so happy to be able to be interviewing you because ever since I got the opportunity to read the games that you've created, I've just kind of been low-key obsessed, and I really hope that you run a game in one of them soon so that I could play in it. Because like it now, as somebody who is I will say TTRPG challenged. I really like them, but the understanding the technical part, the mastery of the just the mastery of just the everything just goes over my head so easily. But reading this really made me want to try really, really hard, like sit down and study it. So I've come up with a ton of questions. Just an absolute, I've been a menace. I've been a menace about this. Now, let's go ahead and look at some of these. Yeah,
Definitely.
Let's take a look. Okay, so first let's start with let's be for real here. We're gonna start with Cold Moon Sabbath.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I want to know what inspired you to create this. I mean, like, are there specific personal experiences, literary works, films? Like, tell me what influenced the games.
Definitely. So, Cold Moon Sabbath is like it was my very first thing that I like published online for game stuff specifically, and at that time in my life, I was with a group called Knights of the Bantam, which like not a thing anymore, but like a bunch of people who are in Timbo's group, kind of like we met there and then all migrated out of there because it was buck wild. And so at that time, we were doing this thing where like at least like 2 or 3 times a month we were playing this game called Fiasco, which is a bully pulpit game. And it's based off the Coen brother films, so like all these like kind of action-y sort of films with really interesting characters and like locations and that kind of thing. And so the idea of Fiasco is like you have a base game and then you have like play sets that you switch in that change the genre. And so like Cold Moon Sabbath is a play set, it's 100 and however many, I think 44 different items of like information, little tidbits, plus I added in some extra stuff in there, and it helps you like kind of shape up this story that you play through basically the course of a night. I think Fiasco works its best when it's like a single night kind of affair. But it's
Okay.
so fun. I have a deep love in my heart for it. And I wanted to make my own set. And so I sat down with myself and I said, now, what genre do I like enough that I can come up with all these things and make them interesting? Um, and I eventually landed on this sort of like pop culture like modern witches kind of vibe. You know, if you think Charmed or by the Vampire Slayer. Recently there was like Winx. There's a whole list of these things that I like call out in the document that were all these different media sources. Sabrina the Teenage Witch and like all these different things that growing up I really loved. And then like it's interesting also because like I also had a period of my life where we were talking about this the other day, but like I was like card carrying Wicca. That's not really my thing anymore, but I still definitely have like practice that I do on my own.
Mhm.
And so also paying homage to those like things that I do myself and like the questions that I ask about practice and what that means to me. And so that's kind of what Cold Moon Sabbath is like, you
Hmm.
know, the lovely thing about designing for Fiasco is one of my favorite game designers, Jay, talks about games that have teeth. And they're the things that like the like evocative phrases and the interesting landmarks and the things that when you put the book down, those teeth are still kind of buried in you and you carry that idea with you a little bit. And designing for Fiasco is kind of a game of just like making teeth, which is a wild phrase, but like, you know, it's all about creating these really evocative phrases that you're starting with, you know, 3 or 4 common things between you and a couple other people at the table and
Mm.
turning them into a story. And it's so fun. I've played Cold Moon Sabbath as a Fiasco playset maybe
Mhm.
like 6 or 7 times. I'm not ashamed to admit I like my own game design.
I mean,
Um,
you have to. I mean, it's your game.
yeah, and every game has been different. That's the lovely thing about Fiasco because it's so evocative and so kind of it challenges the players to really kind of be present for that one session. I think
Ah.
it always ends up in a totally different direction. It's so fun.
Now,
Um,
that's one thing that did draw me to it quite a bit is just the fact that I personally struggle to stay in the game. I struggle. I fade out. You know, it's part of the ADHD brain. I just, oh, a squirrel. You know,
Definitely.
like I'm off there. I'm staring at other things. I get a thought about like anything else. But I really feel like not only like that I could stay in Cold Moon Sabbath, but that I would have to survive it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thought with it. Now let's look a little bit into we had this other thing that we loaded up here, the witch's watch list. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here we
Uh,
go. So tell me a little bit about this.
so this is really common for Fiasco playsets. They're not called this every time, but for playsets because they're so influenced by genre and like TV and film, you often include as kind of touchstones for people who are like looking through and they're like, is this going to be something that's, you know, interesting to me? You can always go to the watch list page in a Fiasco playlist and it's kind of like, here's media touchstones that like if this is hitting for you, well, great news, this playset's going to be probably going to be a good experience. And so I called out a couple of these already. I'm pulling it up because I have bad eyesight, so I'm pulling it up on my own computer. But the Witches watch list, I think I included maybe like 20 to 25 things in here.
Wow.
Beautiful creatures. I think lovely kind of high stakes family drama in terms of witches, which is part of this. Cold Moon Sabbath is a game about kind of like a coven gathering at the winter solstice, which is also the cold moon, which is the December full moon.
Mhm.
And there is, I think, a little bit of symmetry in that sense because Beautiful Creatures, like, there's this, on the 16th birthday of each person in this family's thing, something big happens to them. And so, like, the family all gets together to essentially watch whatever wild transformation happens. And so I think that was part of that inspiration. You have The Craft, Winx, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and also Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, even though I know the ending of it was a little like, the vibes are there.
I didn't reach the ending of it, I'm not gonna lie.
It's okay. It wasn't worth it. Absolutely.
Jeez.
And Lovecraft Country. This one, I think, I'll call out just a couple more, but Lovecraft Country, I think, is very much deep in a lot of the thematic vibes of this playset. Is
Ugh,
like
I
the
so agree.
intersection of like high ritual magic and just kind of more like native practices, which doesn't, the show got ended, but there's more happening there. And
Yeah.
the kind of, I don't know if you're familiar, but it's this really interesting idea about like, Masonic hermetic orders and kind of
Mhm.
lineage and how that kind of interplays with American history. And like, you know, when someone back in like colonial times had sex with one of their like women slaves, and then 100 years down the line, it like there's like these two sides of this family. And so
Mhm.
I think that like, but there's also that show also deals a lot with like things that are actually magic and also things that maybe just look magic and aren't, and things that don't look magic and are, and kind of those expectations. It goes at it from all
Yeah.
lenses. And I think Cold Moon Sabbath also plays with those ideas of like, maybe it's magic, maybe it's not, maybe it's just coincidence. And for like relationships in the objects section, there's a whole section dedicated to just like, maybe it's magic, maybe it's mumbo jumbo. And it's kind of balancing that line of like, here's an item that could be something, a US playing cards tarot deck, which is like,
Mm.
it's still a tarot deck. It is also the most mass produced tarot deck in the world that, you know, profited off a woman's artwork that never, like a Roma woman's artwork that she never got credit for during her life. Like, it, there's a lot of interesting things tied up, I think, with modern witchiness, to put it kind of frankly. And I think
Mhm.
that's part of the challenge of Cold Moon Sabbath, is it's asking you to consider those like nuances.
I like that it does ask you to think like, is it real? Is there
Yeah,
any legitimacy to it? I do agree. I think that's really really interesting. Now, with the magical system, can
mhm.
you elaborate a little bit? You knew this question was coming. Can you elaborate
Absolutely.
a little bit on how you developed it? Because I see,
Definitely.
to me it stood out just a little bit more. I know that it's a part of a greater game, but can you tell me how they influence player interactions and the outcome of the game?
Definitely. And this is like a table thing as well, of like, with that lever you can kind of pull of like, is it magic, is it not? I think there are some tables that will lean more into it, of like, something huge is going to happen. And then there are other ones where it's much more of kind of like a like practical magic story, where it's like there's a little everyday mundane magics. And so in terms of like actual mechanical things, I think like, it's very hands off. And It's pretty intentional for me. That was a consideration of like, do I want to kind of like enshrine some kind of magic to tie into this playset? And this is just part of my design philosophy across the board. Is I think that if you leave the right spaces open for players to make choices, like you're saying ahead of time, here's the mad libs that we're dealing with, and you have these spaces that are free reign for you. um I think that players will kind of like pursue their joy, like if they want to go high magic, maybe they pick one of the ceremonies like calling the moon, where it's like a very literal magic kind of happening. Or if they're less magic, they do like wreath burning. And that's part of making the set, is I wanted to balance that line. And so, you have to go really swing for the fences with saying things like a door to the world of monsters,
Mhm.
but then on the other hand, just say like you are in a dark room and you have a single lighter. You kind of leave the space open for people to contextualize what they want out of the game. And that is part of the choice with designing these games like this, is like, how often do you make those spaces, and like what's too hands off? Because I think like it's
Right.
very easy to just go like, there's some places, there's a chicken, a KFC here, that's a location, and it's like, yeah, I guess that's something, but like, is it anything?
Is
So
it?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, I see it. I see it. It's definitely the hands off versus the like what can the DM pull out of you kind of
Yeah,
situation.
definitely.
Yeah. So with that, let's talk a little bit about your second game here.
Yeah,
Let's talk a little
absolutely.
bit about Dying of the Light. Talk to me. Talk to me. Tell me. For
Dying
those
of
who have never seen this game,
Definitely, let me give a pitch.
let's do it. Give us the pitch.
Okay, so Dying of the Light is, it's kind of a couple things all in one bundle. And usually if you're into one of the things, you'll be into the other things. So, primarily, one of the sort of base engines of the game is a map making game. It's based off of some of the ideas from, um The Quiet Year and its sequel, The Deep Forest, which, Sage, I think we should play The Deep Forest. It's very good. It's a group about a it's a game about a group of monsters who live in the woods that has been, up until very recently, been occupied by humans, elves, and dwarves, and they've pushed everyone out, and they have a quiet year to recollect and kind of have their life together before people come back. So it's a great game. I love it. It was definitely an inspiration for the Dying of the Light. So we have map making going on.
Okay, okay.
Part of this is it's also like each player, it's a GM-less game. So each player has a like equal footing. There's all GM-less games is kind of a misnomer, because there's always going to be one person who like knows the game. But
Mhm.
I think it tries to give everyone that like equal footing. And part of that is each person is not playing an individual character.
Okay.
As a group, we are playing out a night as a city. Both its people, its locations, even just like interesting things you find there. That's the
Mm.
task of Dying of the Light, is to show kind of the quiet and intimate moments in a large, bustling city. And so, to put it all like really nicely together, it's a game about depicting a city, its connections between people and location on a single night. And truly, it's one of my favorite things I've ever written. I revisit it every once in a while, just because like it it's it's not challenging mechanically, but I think that really, it's not challenging, but it's rewarding in that, like, if you put in the work to really, like, have a good time and play through the game, I think that the game kind of pays you back in kind, and you leave with something special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely I like the GM-less system. I actually would like to talk about that quite a bit more.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
okay, with that, I've noticed that with what you do, there's a very strong emphasis on non-traditional storytelling. Like the GM-less system in that it's just there's such a potential for chaos in
Mhm.
that. Um so what are the challenges would you say at that? And consequently, what are the rewards that you've encountered
Definitely.
in designing games like that that sort of just push away from what is generally done?
I think that GM-less games are there's something that I really enjoy because it feels in a certain sense, it's the most like having a board game in that, like, once everyone knows the rules, we all kind of are just here hanging out in a place. Um, with having a GM, and this is no knocking every system that has a GM. We like I love Vampire the Masquerade, and they have storytellers. I play a lot of D&D. They have dungeon masters, and I love a good monster of the week. And the thing is, there is always like a little bit of like that feeling of there's a separation between players who are GMs and players who are capital P players.
Mm.
And I think every once in a while it's good to do a GM-less game because it allows everyone to be a capital P player. And there's certainly other ways of looking at it that it's like it's a way to make everyone like have equal authorial intent or things like that. But I think my primary motivation is like breaking down that barrier where people who are running the games have to feel like they're not a player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
And so it can be challenging because I think part of GM-less games is like you can't make it too big, too ambitious without starting to run into like, well, who makes the decisions about what the map looks like?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we go over that kind of thing? I think that like if you look at Fiasco, it's a relatively short game. Once you like, if you look at the rule book for Fiasco, once you take out all the extra play sets and like the examples of play, it's a relatively short rule book. And like
Yeah.
Dying of the Light, the majority of the text is the Night Oracle.
You
So
said the
that's
word.
really, yeah,
You said
that's
the word.
that's really the like biggest challenge is not getting too big.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest reward is that like it's really satisfying to play a well-made GM-less game because it's like it feels very hands off, and I enjoy it. I think it's fun to do when you can.
Yeah.
But I did say
No,
definitely.
I agree. I think it's a very unique way to play. I don't think I've ever come across something that quite plays like that. Man, I am little baby TTRPG player, but
Sure.
so far from what I've read, this has very much captured my personal interest. And again, I will vote that we play this
I would
immediately.
love
Thank
to.
you.
Oh, absolutely. Either this listen, any of like Quiet Year, Deep Forest, or Dying of the Light. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I think they're all great. Truly, kind of. I think it's very mind opening, if that makes sense. Like you,
Yeah.
once you play a TTRPG that's really different from like a D&D or a World of Darkness game,
Mhm.
and you like have a good time, it's like, oh shit, games can be a lot of things.
Yes, that's what I'm discovering recently playing Fate actually. When I started
Mhm.
playing Fate, I started really realizing kind of what else I could do. Now, you said the magic words. You
Of
said,
course.
you said the Night Oracle. So so the Night Oracle plays a super crucial role in Dying of the Light. And I wanted to know how you conceived of this feature and how it sort of shapes that gameplay experience.
Definitely. So it is a bit of a mirror to um the Quiet Year and the Deep Forest, and that there being like a oracle that's split based off of a deck of cards. Um I I had this idea when I was coming up with like how I wanted to kind of build out this game because I wanted it to be a sort of like a nod to map making, but also a little bit looser. And this game was part of the Caltrop Core game jam that my friend Lex did, and basically this idea that like generating a bunch of interesting locations and people and things happening in the city so that you could create moments of light, which is the real like keystone feature of Dying of the Light, is creating moments of light in a dark night.
Mm.
And so the Night Oracle is a way to do all of that generating of like things. And players also have some agency to say like, I think there's a coffee shop and I'm going to spend a token on that. But these ones I think help you generate characters and places in a way that like gives you some insight. So the Night Oracle, what happens is there are 4 phases. You have evening, nighttime, the witching hour, and dusk. Or no, dawn.
Mhm.
And through each suit of cards, you're dealing with slightly different themes. And when you pull a card, it gives you one of 2 questions, or 2 questions usually. And it's up to the player to pick which question is a little more appealing to them. And when you answer these questions, it actually, I think I kept this in the most recent edition of the game because I'm working on a second edition right now.
Mm.
Is thinking of each question as taking like in world, each question is about 15 minutes of time when you look at the number of cards you have over an 8-hour period. And so when you answer a question, you're answering about this little slice of life scene that's just taking up anywhere up to 15 minutes. It could be as short as 5 seconds, but it could be up to 15. And so you create all these little people, these little blorbos in these little places, and you have a little bit of connection to them that kind of encourages you. And so the Oracle is really the like part of the game that's intended to kind of pull on your heartstrings a little bit, and then the moments of light are the moments where you get to, it's kind of a call and response, where the
Mhm.
game says like, here's these interesting things, and the player says, here's how I feel about that. What if I try and do something about it? And yeah, I think that it's that's really like the main purpose of it, and informs a lot of the choices I did when I was trying to come up with things of like, you know, 52 question or 52 cards with 2 questions each usually. It's a lot of questions to come up with.
It
And
is.
how do you pick the ones that are, carrying important information and the ones that like it's interesting, but maybe I just like think that it's fun for myself. Like the kill your darlings kind of thing.
The worst part of
Where
story making, the hardest part.
absolutely. And there were questions that like were in my original document that didn't make it into the final game because it was like, I think this is just one that I think it's really nice. I don't know if it'll resonate with someone else, but like I'll treasure it.
Mm.
And so the intent behind designing was like, what are the things that have the punchiest kind of emotions of like, how do you take a card and make 2 questions that are related? And so one of my favorites is in the second phase of the night. On, I don't remember what the actual card is, but one of the questions is about two people who are on their last date. They don't know that it's their last date. What's one memory that they will remember from their relationship together? And the other question is like, there are two people who are on their first date and they're thinking about someone else in the city. Describe someone else in the city who's not even at this location. And so, kind of like finding similarities or creating similar questions that also like ask different things, if that makes sense. Of
No, I
like,
see it. I see
you
it.
know,
That first question would have murdered me, actually. I would have.
Definitely.
I think at that point, due to personal reasons, I would have passed away.
Absolutely, immediately.
Because then you think there are so many songs that exist that say like, if I had known this was the last time, I would
Yeah.
have said this, that, and the third, and like being able to like hold on to a memory like that is incredible. And the other thing that I really love is the fact that you get people so incredibly like invested. You get them so invested in the story because they have a hand in its creation, because they have the chance to do that. And I've noticed that with a lot of things, like the second that people get to create, they remember. They remember. So I
Absolutely.
feel like anybody who plays Dying of the Light at this point, the moment that they have a creation, that's something that's going to be a part of their souls. And
Yeah.
even if they never play the game again, that question in there, like they're gonna apply it to that. Like I didn't know I was never gonna play the game again, but man, do I have this memory.
One of my favorite things to imagine is like one of the things the game suggests is like having flashcards where you're writing people or moments on that you're kind of arranging on your map.
Yeah, I
And I
100%
love
would.
the idea of someone like playing the game, they made all their characters, their locations, their moments of light, and 2 months later they find one of their flashcards and it's like getting kind of hit by that moment again. And it's like that's the kind of like design thing that like as a game designer, that's the thing that I'm chasing, is like helping people make memories that are like gonna last. Because here's a fun thing. Here's a neuroscience thing. There was a study that was done about it specifically focused on D&D, but like it was a sort of TTRPG games science kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
that looked at brain activity when people were describing memories of games that they had played of D&D. And your brain activates in the same way as when you describe a story that happened to yourself, as when you're describing a story that happened to your character.
Really?
And so that's always really stuck with me. Like one of my friends told me that because he's like a professor for like of neuroscience, and it's like we were talking about game stuff one time, and he's like, "Oh, I read this cool paper," and but it always stuck with me because it's like I think that's as a game designer, I kind of hold that in my head of like, if you're gonna help people have these memories and these experiences, make them a good one, and so.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. I feel like if I came across a note card that like I had written a memory like that on, I mean, it really would feel real. And honestly, like it kind of is, because you have to think like your experiences, the only difference between your experiences as your character and your experiences as you is the other senses.
Yeah.
That's the only real difference that I can feel. Like it's just, I could see it in my mind's eye, I could feel it in my mind's eye, I could taste it and smell it and everything, and it was just all in my mind versus in my body. And I think that those stories are completely valid.
Mhm.
Now, with that being said, like, did you know this before you started creating?
Which part?
Just
The
that these memories are like that it fires off the same neurons in your brain.
No, actually, like it was Well, I guess it was before I like published my first thing, but I started doing game design like in college. And it was something that was very much like I'm publishing for me and the like 5 people who follow my Tumblr blog.
Mhm.
And I still have a bunch of that stuff, but the blog has been since deleted. But the I think the thing about, doing some kind of art, doing some kind of writing, creative thing is I think that oftentimes moments like that, like you hear something like that and it it's not that it is revealing something new to you about what your writing ethos is, but it's more about like revealing something that already exists rather than like here's something that you can aspire to. And so I think that's kind of always been one of my design things is like I've never been someone who wants to run the really punishing like Tomb of Horrors module
Yeah.
or run something that I know ahead of time is like a sort of Kobayashi Maru, everyone's gonna die by the end of it. Like that's never really my first instinct as a designer. And
Mhm.
so like that was just one of those moments that was very affirming that it was like, yeah, I think I'm on the right track.
It's inevitability is a really, really slippery slope. It's hard to hold
Yeah.
on at any point if there's just like okay, but like on the topic of inevitability, like
Sure.
I actually I do want to know kind of how you balance the elements of chance because chance I think in a way can be inevitability in and of itself. So how do you balance that with player agency because you want to have this really good storytelling experience,
Definitely.
but chance as with most TTRPG games it tends to kind of it sometimes it rips things out of your hands, which is just life. But how did you balance it?
Actually, if you could, would you be able to pull up that quote from
Absolutely.
I think it's very relevant to it because this is part of like it has always been part of my kind of creative practice and it carries over into games. But at a very young age, I became personally very attached to the author Kate DiCamillo. Because of Winn Dixie, The Tales of Despero, and
Mhm.
like these sort of coming of age books that were not always they didn't always pull their punches when it came to like sad things and things that didn't feel fair to whoever the protagonist was. And when I was in high school, my drama teacher, really still a really good friend, Laura, she would always kind of remind us of the second part of this quote before we did a show. But um, I'll read through this real quick. So
Of
this is
course.
from The Tale of Despero. The story is not a pretty one. There is violence in it and cruelty. But stories that are not pretty have a certain value too, I suppose. Everything, as well you know, having lived in this world long enough to have figured out a thing or two for yourself, cannot always be sweetness and light. Stories are light. Light is precious in a world so dark. Begin at the beginning, tell a story, make some light. And that really ripples through kind of like all of my art, that question of like balancing the sweetness with the sadness. And in a certain sense, like even when we really agree with the dice of like, we're like, hell yeah, I rolled a nat 20 or whatever. I think that there's still a moment of like chance and probability is kind of the like quote unquote like violence of TTRPGs of like, everything is up in the air until you roll the dice. That's the whole point of
Mhm.
different randomized elements is like, you know, the difference between us doing an improv scene and doing a TTRPG is dice or a deck of cards, and leaving that choice up to chance, where you may not be super jazzed about the result you get, but I think it's still important to kind of think about, okay, so that happened. What are the offshoots? What are the things that, like, as a storyteller, I can still dig my teeth in and go, this sucked for my character, but it was still such a good moment. And so that's part of, Dying to the Light. The core mechanic is the moments of rolling for a moment of light. And the base thing, you're rolling 1d4 and you're trying to hit at least a 4, which is not bad chances, but you can spend tokens to try and roll more, or maybe a question tells you to roll more dice to give you a better chance.
Yeah.
I think even in the best of scenarios, and this is like built into the design, even if you were to, spend 4 tokens and you have 5 dice that you're rolling, it's still not guaranteed that the thing you were hoping for is going to work, or something worse might happen. And I think that's the thing, is like talking about randomization and player agency. I think it's about finding the truth in the moments where you have less player agency. That's the challenge of doing this, is like, if you're playing Delta Green and you hit your breaking point and have a bit of a like breakdown, what in that is interesting to your character? What are the things that are like still driving you forward? And so it's less about balancing the two and more about balancing expectations of the two, I think. Of like, there are games like Tin Candles that tell you by the end of the night, all of these characters are going to be dead because it's a tragic, like, survival story. And that there's going to be no way for you to overcome your character dying, and how do you still kind of play and make it worth the last kind of moments. And so I really think that's the thing, is more about balancing expectations rather than balancing rules.
No, I like it. I like it because if you go into a situation kind of having the idea of what you're getting into, you're better able to craft a story from that, I think.
Definitely.
And that's ultimately what games are about. It's not just about mastering mechanics or getting to the end of the story, or crafting your way there. It's about it's about every moment. It's about it's about what made this worth playing. You know?
Absolutely.
I love this. I love this. I am just I'm obsessed with this. I really, really, really want to play this. Now, I did have a few more questions, and if you're willing to go a little over our time, I am also willing to go a little over our time, because I think that we have a lot more that we can cover. And I know we got a little bit of a late start.
Yeah, definitely. I think I could do like maybe 25 more minutes, if probably max.
I think maximum.
Cool.
We shouldn't be more than 10 over if I can play my cards right, but we'll see what happens when I flip them,
Definitely.
So I noticed that both of these really explore very deep themes of darkness and light, both Cold Moon Sabbath and Dying of the Light. So I just was wondering sort of how you developed those themes and what they kind of symbolize.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, darkness and light, light and shadow, white and black, all of these different ways that we kind of contextualize like direct opposition. Um, I and obviously I just shared this quote that's like central to my sort of design thinking, but kind of a little bit antithetical to that is, I think, also like, or maybe not antithetical, but it's a little more like, which one is the horse and which is the cart, is the idea that like, I also hate the absolutism that like light is good. And it's much more interesting of like considering things as what they are to each other, rather like, I don't know. I think doing that in either direction of like, light is good, or if you're trying to be like cool and you're like, actually shadows are good. Like, I think in either direction, it's a little bit like too much absolutism for me, that like because I think on one hand you have like the darkness of being in a cave where it's wet and cold and both quiet and loud. But then on the other hand, you have the like darkness of like a child before they're being born. And it's very warm and nurturing, and it's the like, and so in either cases, I really like to think about, like, in this moment, what is the light and the dark? What do they mean in this context, and what do they mean to each other? Um, you know, in the evening phase of Dying of the Light, you have all these like sparkling lights and like all these things that are all about kind of extravagance and partying.
Mhm.
But then if you look at the very end, you have the rising of the game.
Mhm.
And it's like kind of this abrupt cutoff at the end of this game that really holds your hand all the way through. You get to the end and it's like that's the end of the game. And so I think what's interesting to me is the idea of these like motifs being used in ways that maybe aren't as intuitive, of like this is good or this is bad, or this has to be this thing because of that. Because I don't think that people generally follow those trends, especially
Yeah.
nowadays. But like, you know, it's all about context, I think, for the design of like light and dark. It's less about thematically what they mean to me all the time, because I think they never mean any one thing all the time. If
I
that makes sense.
I love that answer because it's not just exploring the in between. It's not exploring the full spectrum of light and darkness. It's still seeing them at opposite ends of a spectrum, just determining what the it's I love that because you're not exploring the spectrum as much as you are assigning your own value to it, which is such a unique way to go about it.
And I think, like, with light and dark, there are times where they're traveling together. We often see them as opposed forces, but, like, if we talk, one of the things in the light and dark locations in the Cold Moon Sabbath is a room lit by 100 candles, and this idea of like, obviously that's going to be pretty bright, but at the same time, candles individually don't put off that much light. So if you imagine this room full of candles, it's going to be both bright and dark,
Mm.
and neither of they're kind of existing in equilibrium in that space, as opposed to like a lighter in a dark room. Obviously one is kind of overpowering the other, but in that instance I think there are ways where they're kind of like walking hand in hand, and that's also interesting.
Yeah, I like it. I like it's poetic. It's really
Bingo.
poetic. And I think knowing this all kind of beforehand gets me a lot more excited to be able to actually play that game.
Hell yeah.
I mean, uh, it's it is just it's glorious. So both games
Mhm.
also I think seem to incorporate really diverse like cultural and supernatural elements. So what's your process of researching and how do you select what references to include?
Definitely. um I, part of this is being a sort of lifetime movie watcher. Not Lifetime the channel, but like, film and TV has always been a really big thing for my family and for me personally. And so like I think the vibes definitely are just like a long kind of personal history of really enjoying the genre.
Mhm.
I think that this was the kind of thing that I had to be really intentional about design elements I was putting in because, like, as we were talking about the other day, in sort of modern pop Wicca practices, there's a lot of like appropriative syncretism, where people are just pulling from like any kind of culture who was already there.
Yeah.
And so there are a couple of design things that like in Cold Moon Sabbath I had to like take a really intentional choice to step a little bit away from something specific. Like
Mm.
one of the options for one of the like objects is a demon jar. And I think across cultures like around the world you can find different examples of things that act like this. And they're things that may have specific names, but it's kind of like zooming back out and going like this is kind of a big category of stuff, and you can make the active choice to be more specific if that is important to the story. And it kind of comes back to that leaving spaces open is like there were times where things were just straight up direct references to like Beautiful Creatures or to Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. There's even like a D&D reference in here. Like there are things that are just straight up like kind of pastiches of the genre of like this pops up a ton of times, I'm just going to do this. And there's definitely like an influence I think of like Southern Gothic in a lot of the choices that I make. And it's a genre that I think is very related to this kind of like Southern magical realism space that Dying of the Light kind of also exists in, that it's like we it's all about kind of the stories that are surrounding us,
Mhm.
and that was such a vague statement. Oh my god.
No,
Like
it wasn't that big at all.
because it's like I can picture books on my bookcase that I'm like, oh yeah, like there are definitely things that I pulled from that one, and it was like something I got after a panel for like Southern Gothic literature. There was this like monster novelist that I like got her book, and she was so cool, and we just talked for a little bit about like in her hometown there was like this sort of urban legend or like folktale urban legend about this monster that had been around for a long time. And so really like I would say honestly more than some of the other things I've worked on, this is like just a like project from the heart. There were specific things that I felt drawn to that I was like, I think this requires a little more thought to present it in a more conducive to inclusive play way.
Yeah.
But broad strokes, I would say a lot of it just came from the fact that like this is the genre that I engage with the most. And to that point, one of the games that I'm working on right now that I've been working on, it's my white whale of a game. It's about Atlantis right after the city has sunk beneath the waves.
Oh?
And I I started doing research on it because it was like Atlantis, there's a lot of like ideas about it. Obviously, there's lots of conspiracy theories. There's the original like Plato myth, but like, what is it? And so I started doing research, and then I found out that like one guy literally wrote the book on Atlantis. In like 1860, there was this guy who was like a lawyer, a farmer, a politician, and a charlatan. And he wrote this book of like pseudoscience that like starts at incredibly presumptive and just straight up illogical all the way to like full racism. And it's this thing that like I realized very early on, and why this game has become such a thing is like this is the book that Stargate Atlantis, Atlantis the Lost Empire, all of the Aquaman, all of these kind of stories that deal with Atlantis all have so much of their heritage from this insane book. Like there are things in this book that you can read now, I think, as like an interesting historical document that
Mhm.
I it took me almost a full year to get through this book because there were times I had to put it down and walk away because it was like, this guy is so wild. The only thing that got me through it was the edition I had footnotes by this one woman. And every time he made like a big claim, she was like, and here's an article where you can like see evidence to the contrary. And at one point, I think she calls him an asshole in the footnotes. Like,
Are these
it's
handwritten
so
footnotes?
no, these are like typed up. This was from the printed edition, and she is
Incredible.
ripping this guy a new asshole in this book. And it's so funny because it's like very clearly she's like, this is an important topic, but also this guy is so off base. And so that's the kind of other thing as a designer is like, you know, I think it's so important to do research when research is necessary. There are certain games that like Dying of the Light, I didn't do as much research on because a lot of it was like coming from personal experiences. They were coming
Mm.
from like stories from friends and just like interesting ideas. But like the things that I'll boil down to think like I want to really work on this. I want to make something that like is more than the original source material. Like I think that's where research comes in, and it's all about like that specifically learning about Atlantis and the ideas that people have. There's a lot of unlearning to do and recontextualizing, and lots of people have written about it because it's like it's the story that people love to tell over and over again. And I think that like even incredibly well intentioned and people who do like great writing maybe don't even know that that's where the roots of it come from. And so I think like there are things that for me personally research means that I'm trying to be more intentional about kind of intersectionality when I'm producing my games. I think that that's really like baseline part of this whole, if we're going to have a good experience, like if we're going to have this memory, this experience, make it a good one. And part of
Yeah.
that is like if you look at D&D, if you look at even like older editions of Vampire, there are roots there that are like really problematic, and there are things that these legacy brands have to overcome. And I think like part of the challenge of being a designer nowadays is pulling apart all of those things that it's like, oh well, I learned about Rakshasa from D&D, and for 6 years of my life figured they were actually always tiger demons. And being willing to admit that, and also like intentionally investigate further in the future when you're making things of like sure, this is what's familiar and it's what people know, but I think we have a like responsibility to do better than just this is what people know, so we're going to just keep doing it because that's what tabletop games do. And it's
No,
like I
I
don't think that's
agree.
correct.
I agree. Like, I mean, we need to look no further at that point than Lovecraft. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's like, at what point do you separate the creation from the creator? Because I mean, look at something more modern. Look at Harry Potter, for example. Harry Potter,
Yeah.
near and dear to so many millennials and so many just in general, just people of every generation, and then having to completely disavow it as you learn a little more and as you grow a little more and understand
Yeah.
not just what the origin is, but how sometimes you can't just cut it off. Sometimes you have to look and be like, no, this is such an integral part of the story that was told, and it
Mhm.
had such terrible origins that if first of all, if you took it out, the story wouldn't work, and that's what makes the story terrible.
Yeah.
It's like, so for you to be able
Mhm.
to, for you to have the bravery to tackle something like that, knowing that the way to make it work the way to make it worthy, not just in, and I'm gonna lead back to it again because that question stuck with me. The question stuck with me. The you know, if you know, this is your last date, you didn't know it was your last date kind of thing. It's the same thing. It's the same. If I wrote on a note card something that I remembered from this white whale of a game that you're gonna make,
Sure.
and then I go and I read that infuriating book with the asshole footnote, I'm I'm gonna look at it and I think I would feel almost a special kind of healing from knowing how you not only diverged from it, but how you made it work. How you made it work without the racist elements, without the factually pseudoscience incorrect, just bad. How you just shove that to the side. So like I personally am super looking forward to it because I can see how you're going to be inclusive of the truth, and I can see how you're going to be able to reflect what I think people, not just what people want, but what people need out of TTRPGs. Because there is that level of distrust, I think, when it comes to a lot of things. I know I personally have it. Anytime I hear that a game is indigenous based, for example, and I don't think, I don't see outright that there's a lot of indigenous creation on the creation side of it, and indigenous people there, I have a lot of distrust because I'm like, is this represented properly? Did they reach out to the tribes? Did they bother talking to like anybody? Did they get permission? This sort of thing. I think that it's important to rebuild the trust between the creator and the player. And with that, I actually did have, I know we've run over, but I do have another question. So say you work on something and there's just something you don't know. The player gives you that feedback. How do you like in like just saying we're in the test play part of this, right? So how, first of all, how do you test your games? And secondly, how would you integrate player feedback into the final version?
Definitely. Playtesting is a skill unto itself, and I think that like a lot of people have really specific ways they do it. I'm part of the contingency where it's like I will get a game together and do some playtesting in person, and I'll be taking notes throughout the entire thing. Usually if it's a game that has like someone who's taking on like more of a GM role, so like when I'm working on this like Atlantis game, and the bits that I have tested, I'll have someone else be the game master so that I can just sit and take notes and like ask questions for people, and see the things that they ask questions about. And then I will kind of add a note in my like, this is my Google Doc where I have the like text of the game. Let me put a comment here so that I can go through later after the playtest is over and I can really sit and think about it. And then after I do a couple runs of that, maybe like, you know, I'm not as wild of a playtester when I get things out into the wild as other people, where they're like, I run 100 games minimum before I even think about doing like presenting to the public. I'm like, I love that for you. That is not me. I will do what's called an ash can edition, where I put it up on itch, and I'm like, hey, we haven't been able to do like a playtest session, but I'm putting this up on itch. Anyone wants to go check out this free playtest, give me some feedback. And it's an opportunity for people who maybe we aren't like seeing each other regularly, or maybe a friend of a friend found it, and feedback comes in that way too through itch. And it's one of my favorite things to have someone that I have no idea who they are. Sometimes they'll have a random like username like foot, and they'll leave me just like a lovely note and things to think about. And dying of the light, there's one note that like it's literally the only reason I haven't put out the second edition yet, which is mostly just like cleaning up the text document. There are some changes, but the one note that stuck with me the most that I have like literally sat on for like 4 or 5 months at this point is the game ends very abruptly. And I made that choice really intentionally in the first edition, that it's like, this is a game that mechanically is pretty easily set up, so there's not a whole lot of, like, having to come back to the rules. But, like, in the rule, so, like, there's a lot of kind of hand-holding there because the play structure is very simple. But, like, in the text, it's a very kind of, like, friendly kind of tone that I took with it. And
Mhm.
so it's this game that kind of presents itself as, like, kind of like this friendly, cozy experience, and then the very end just ends. And there is an abruptness to it, and I recognize that, and the motivation for me is, it's like, this is a game about night. And even though we're like heading into a new day with dawn, and there's that like really brief crossing over time where we're like still kind of nighttime, still kind of the day. I liked the idea of it being like, this is a game about the night. We have no idea what's coming in the next day, and that's an entirely different problem altogether.
Mm.
Um, and but I do recognize that it's like, it's a really interesting change based off of the rest of the game. And so it's like, there are times where player comments are so important to me. I'm like, I'm going to think about this comment from this dude named Foot that like
Shout out to Foot.
shout out to
Dom's
Foot.
right. Shout out to Foot.
So, it's really and I think this is also the same in like just the playing space of like, there are times where as a game runner, people will like kind of pitch something my way, and like, Sage, you're a wonderful example of this. It's it was such a like gift for you to bring Quay to the table in our vampire game, and like introduce all of these concepts that like were things of interest to me in the campaign, but it was like, I feel like I don't have enough of a knowledge base to kind of interact with these things in a meaningful way and like in a respectful way. And so like, to have you come to the table and say like, here are these interesting things that I want to kind of communicate in my game playing. And it's like, great, I'm going to spend an entire afternoon watching Fancy Dance. Like, that's wonderful. And so like, I think, as a designer, as a game player, it's really all just about like communicating, and being open to like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the game should be a little bit nicer at the end of it, but we'll see if Foot wins this one.
We'll see if Foot wins. It's a
Yeah.
battle between Foot and creator here.
Yeah. Foot v Heart.
Now, what I
Deathmatch.
am gonna do with our viewers, thank you for holding on so far past our thing. I do have one more question for Wubs here, and while we're discussing, if there are any questions that we haven't covered that you have, now's the time to put them in the chat. For now, let's know the Slime Plaza. We are not Team Foot. We are Team Wubs.
Maybe
are
we're Team
loyal
Foot.
in this
That's
chat.
part of it, is we could admit we might be wrong. Maybe I'm Team Foot. We'll see.
We'll find
You
out
know?
who's Team Foot. I'll tell you what.
Exactly.
So while y'all think of y'all questions and everything, we are gonna just ask this last question, which is, again, it is the source. I said so at the end of Noelle's interview, and I'll say so again. This is what Smoke Talk is really about. It's about what burns inside of us as our passion, what embers are inside of us, and what smoke they're creating, what we are putting out into the world, what signals we're sending. So, what advice would you give? What signals are you sending out into the world for people who are interested in doing what you do, who want to create their own TTRPGs, who want to create narrative-driven games? What would you say to these people?
I think first off, and this is so core to any kind of creative thing, but I think like I can speak directly to TTRPGs is like if you are speaking from the heart when you're making games, if you're really kind of putting yourself out there of like, I have a game that I'm not sure if anyone else is gonna like, but I think it's interesting. I can guarantee that like in the indie TTRPG scene, you're gonna find someone. And not only is it like you're kind of putting your own voice out there. I think that like more often than not, you'll find that there are people who are kind of walking similar or the same paths as you, that there's a lot of support, and it's all a matter of looking for it and giving it when you have it available. Because it's part of TTRPGs. It's a community thing, and that comes to designing it, that comes to playing it, that like, I love solo TTRPGs, journaling games, that things like that, but even that is community and like between you and the author. And I really think that like the biggest challenge with becoming a new TTRPG designer is finding your perspective, um, the things that you can bring to the table that are important to you. I made it really central to my design stuff that it's like my games are about community, my games are about the margins and things that are, similar because of their distance from each other. Those are the things that really drive my games, and I think they're the things that people, when they read my stuff, they're like, this is what I'm here for. So when it comes to designing things in a sort of inspirational sense, I think look to kind of find your North Star of what do you bring to the table, because there is something. In a really logistical sense, play as many games as you can. And I know that's like a hard ask, and it definitely is like it's easier when you're friends with designers and you can be like, hey, I found this game called Fishblade, and it's about fighting with fish. For them to be like, you know what? Sure. And so that's part of why community is great, because it provides you people who will play just like games that challenge you and your thoughts about games. Um, but the other thing I saw that was like it was so powerful that it's it was this article that was all about like sort of natural game design and things that are intuitive, and it's like when you start to wax philosophical about games like I've been doing for the past hour, take a break, go play a game. And it could be something as simple as playing a short journaling game, or even doing like text RP or anything like that. I think engaging with fiction with other people is the most powerful inspirational things for becoming a game designer.
I love that message. I really, really do. We do have a question in the multi-stream. It is, when can we expect sort of a little muddled here. It's basically, when can we expect the next version of Dying of the Light to have a vague release date?
Definitely. Dying of the Light, I would like to get out by the end of May. Things are a little up in flux right now because like we're ramping up for my sister's wedding. So there's a lot of like less free time because we're, tying streamers to other streamers and doing wedding things. But trying to shoot for like the end of May. That really comes down to just like time for me to, boot my software design stuff back up. But anyway, so let's shoot for end of May. I feel pretty solid about that. This summer I will have ashcan copies of a trio of games coming out that are all based around the same basic system, but it's about gambling words. And so that'll be coming out this summer, like an ashcan for those three. And hopefully I will also have. This may just be on Timbo's Discord at first. I haven't decided. I'm working on a game that's about magic disappearing from the world. And I'm hoping to have a playtest of that by August. I don't know if it's going to be in Ashcam, but it'll definitely probably be in Timbo's server for at least a session or two.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
but
super looking forward to that.
real quick for Branwyn, my itch. I don't know if I would be able to post a link in here, but it's werewolf. So where as the question, wolf as the animal, period itch, period IO. That's how you can find my stuff. Versapellis Games, that's me. It's like my brand for doing TTRPG stuff, but werewolf is cool, Arthur is cool, it's all good.
Yeah, we will be posting links to the HIO shop on Twitter, Instagram, etc. And when this goes up on YouTube, you'll be able to find it at about this point, about that part of the screen, that part there, in the little corner there. We'll also be linking it in the bio. Everything will be just there and ready. It is yes, I think we have all been sleeping on itch.io.
Listen, we love itch.io. Honestly, best marketplace for the indie TTRPG scene. Screw Drive Through RPG, Dungeon Masters Guild is my enemy. Storyteller's Vault, too confusing. We're about itch.
Okay. Itch is going to be my go-to. I definitely want to try and play more games now because I think you've kind of opened my world up a little bit. Obnoxiously, thank you.
You're welcome.
Here I was in my own little world, just trying to be a hater, and you didn't let me. So
I'm gonna make you and Don play Dying to the Light. It'll be fun. We'll have candles.
You don't understand how excited I am to try and play these now. This has been a wonderful, incredible interview. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we are gonna wrap up a little bit now. This has been an incredible ride. We have journeyed through storytelling, like the heart of storytelling. We've just gone deep into. I feel like I've played an RPG. Actually, just talking to you. TTRPG. I feel like I've played one. This has been amazing. The way that you've spoken has just harnessed my mind. It's just has been just creative wilds. It has been a true pleasure. Thank you for bringing your craft to our stage and sharing your creative spark with all of us. I thank you very much. Do you have any last words, buddy?
My very last words, returning back to it again, the light is important in a world so dark. Make some light, find the thing that is your little candle and do something with it.
You're killing me, Smalls. My heart. Well, thank you so much. It has been an absolute honor. We will say goodnight to you and I will close out the show. And there we go. Goodbye, Arthur.
Bye.
Goodbye, Wubs. And hello, just me. I know. After all of that, I mean, can we really ever recover from such an incredible time? This was amazing. I am so happy with how this went, honestly. Now, that being said, we are going to go ahead and close out the stream. I appreciate all of you who have showed up. Honestly, to everyone who tuned in, you are the best audience a host could ask for. Thank you for being so interactive. Thank you for hanging out with us on Smoke Talk, for all your brilliant comments, and for making every moment count. I hope that listening to Noelle's journey in the beginning and Wub's journey towards the end, I hope that those are memories that you think of later on down the line. I hope you took notes, and I hope that you find those notes years later and that there's a nice little memory there for you. Shout out to Foot. We can't forget Foot. I don't know if I'm Team Foot yet, but I'm Team Let's Find Out. So that's a wrap for tonight, folks. You keep those dice rolling. You keep those stories flowing. You find your passions. You let them burn. And you send out so much smoke. So much smoke. So many signals out into the world. Share everything. Take care. Stay curious. And here's to all the adventures waiting for us just around the corner. Good night.